We don't need someone as bothersome as you in our home, LOL. My mother-in-law had tricked me into a drive, only to abandon me in the middle of the woods. With a broken leg and no crutches, I started walking, relying on a fallen branch for support. About an hour into my walk down the mountain trail, I found a familiar overturned car. It was my mother-in-law's car. For a moment, I hesitated about calling for help. Considering all the cruel things she had done to me, I decided to just keep walking without reporting it. I figured someone would find her by morning. With that thought, I continued to walk desperately. My name is Lisa. I'm 29 years old. I live with my husband, Bob, who's 3 years older than me, and his parents. After we got married, I realized that my mill was incredibly overprotective. You might think Bob is a mama's boy, but he's a completely normal guy. Therefore, Bob has been trying to keep his distance from his mom, so he thought getting married was a good opportunity to break free from her. However, it didn't work out that way. My mill begged us to live with her, even saying it would be better to die than to live apart. My husband couldn't say no to her tears, and my father-in-law also weighed in, saying, "My peace depends on you too." So we ended up living together. I switched to remote work after getting married, hoping to get along with my mill, but that naive idea quickly crumbled. My mill hated me from the start. Well, of course, I'm the unknown woman who stole her beloved son. She never tries to make good relationship with me. She never understood what remote work was and labeled me as a lazy wife who just plays on the computer all day, meaning naturally, all the household chores landed on me. There's no other use for a lazy wife like you than chores. Do all the housework here, she declared. I had no choice but to comply. In the end, I was forced to do all the houseworks. With working at home, I talked to Bob about it immediately. Your mom doesn't understand remote work at all. Can you please talk to her? Don't worry, I already told her, but I'll remind her again. He assured me. Bob is understanding and supports me. But getting his mom to actually listen is another story. Despite numerous explanations, my mill, who despised me, never got it. The chores never lessened. Now, since all the housework is on me, my stay-at-home mill has a lot of free time. So she started harassing me. First of all, redoing chores like cleaning and laundry was almost a daily occurrence. If even a single hair was found, I'd have to clean again. And if there was even a slight wrinkle in the clothes I had ironed and folded, I had to redo them. Finding a single hair after cleaning is almost inevitable, and it's practically impossible to remove every wrinkle during ironing unless you're running a professional dry cleaning service. How many times have I wished she'd take the wrinkled shirt to the cleaners herself if she's so bothered by it. As for cooking, even a single complaint of this tastes bad would lead her to throw away all the food. I never knew what she didn't like. But even if I made the same amount of chicken soup every day, it could get thrown out depending on her mood, and I'd have to make it again. Her mood essentially dictated everything. However, as we continued to live together, I began to understand my mill's standards for redoing chores. Once I managed to clean without leaving a single hair or iron without a single wrinkle, she began to find other ways to annoy me. For example, she would deliberately spill leftover wine on the cleanly vacuumed living room carpet and gleefully say, "Oops, my hand slipped. You better clean this up now, or it'll stain." Or she'd take ketchup and purposely spill it on freshly laundered clothes, then say, "Oh my, I'm getting clumsy in my old age. You'll need to wash these again if you want to wear them." All while laughing. I was just about to start work, but these antics would throw me off and force me to delay my tasks. I can't tell you how many times I've been thankful that I didn't have any meetings that day. My mill seemed to take great pleasure in making my life difficult. What a miserable way to find joy in life. If she spent her time doing something more meaningful, how much better would that be? I've thought this countless times. With her constant nagging, I've even grown hesitant to talk to my husband about it. That's how often these annoyances happen. Sometimes my husband would ask, "How are things going with my mom?" To which I'd reply, "They're okay, I guess." Then one day, I went shopping in the neighborhood. I was instructed by my mill to buy rice and detergent. Why on earth would she ask me to buy such heavy items today? I don't have a driver's license because I've lived in areas with good public transport. However, I've started to think I need a license. Since moving in with the in-laws, who live a 10-minute walk from the nearest bus stop, with only 3 buses an hour in some rural part of Illinois, such a countryside, I've been busy with work and household chores, so I haven't been able to attend driving school. So my vehicle is an electric assist bicycle. The only thing I've asked my husband, Bob, to buy since we started living here. Bob agreed and bought it for me right away. I have a fond attachment to it, but riding it with 22 pounds of rice and a large container of detergent makes it wobble dangerously. And today is sweltering. The heat got to me, and as I was cycling home in a daze, at that time, a child suddenly ran out in front of me. I tried to avoid him, but lost control and took a bad fall. The weight of the bike and everything I was carrying fell onto my right leg with a terrible sound, and I felt a sharp pain. I then lost consciousness. When I came to, I was in a cool hospital room. It took me only a few seconds to realize I was in the hospital. Apparently, the parents of the child who had run out had called an ambulance, and I was brought here. Bob looked at me with a worried expression. When he noticed I was awake, he asked, "Are you okay? Do you remember what happened?" I recounted the whole ordeal to Bob. "So that's what happened. The parents of the kid you almost hit were also a bit confused about the situation. Is the child I almost hit okay?" "Yeah, just some minor scrapes. You managed to avoid him, thanks to your quick action. But you, what about my right leg?" "Your right leg is broken. It seems all the weight fell on it. You'll need crutches for a while, so I can still walk." "That's a relief. But what about all the household chores? I have to do housework. Is that okay?" "Don't worry about it. Your mom will handle it for now. I'll make sure she knows. You should focus on resting, Lisa." "Thank you." I said the words of gratitude, but I was still uncertain whether I could actually rest. Would my mother-in-law willingly take over the house chores for me? I decided to not keep my hopes up. After a day in the hospital for some tests, I returned home to a surprisingly clean house. It seemed my mill had done some cleaning. As I entered the house with my crutches, she greeted me. "Don't worry, Lisa. It must have been hard for you. I'll take over the house chores until your fracture heals, so just relax." This was an unexpected sentiment. I had initially thought she might say something like, "Just because you've broken a bone doesn't mean you can slack off on the housework." For a moment, I was caught off guard, but realizing I shouldn't sour the mood, I managed to say, "Thank you. I'll be relying on you for a while." Days went by. Indeed, my mill took over all the household chores. During that time, I could focus on my work. And then the day came when both my husband and father-in-law had to go on a business trip. Occasionally their business trips overlap, and that's when my mill's harassment would usually escalate. But this time, I thought it would be fine considering my broken bone. That day, my mill efficiently did the house chores, and I was working. In the evening, after finishing dinner, she suggested a nighttime drive. I feel like having something sweet, so I'm thinking of going to the convenience store. The weather is also nice. How about a short drive? I fell for it and agreed. We set out for a drive, with me placing my crutches in the back seat. First stop, the convenience store. There isn't one near my in-laws' house, It takes about 10 minutes by car to get to one. She got my crutches from the backseat when we arrived, surprised but grateful for her uncharacteristic behavior. I said my thanks. We bought some sweet desserts and continued on a drive. I thought we would take a major road for a little while and then return home. However, my Mill drove us to the entrance of a mountain road. Mill, are we going this way? Without a word, she drove into the mountains. We drove for about 15 minutes and reached somewhere high up the mountain. Suddenly, she stopped the car on the shoulder and came over to my side. She opened the door and pulled me out. Without even bothering to lower my crutches, she returned to the driver's seat. Then she rolled down the window and said, "People like you are just in the way. Come back home when your fracture's healed. LOL," and drove away. I was left standing there, shocked. It's a dark mountain road, and I had to get back home somehow. No smartphone either. Holding on to the hope that if I made it to a more populated area, I'd find a way, I began to descend the mountain road. Fortunately, it had been a straightforward road. This load will be led to the big avenue. I walked over, using Long Branch instead of crutches. An hour had passed. Since my walk was really slow, it takes a long time. Even the distance is 15 minutes away by car. But consistency will save me. As I walked down, I came across my Mill's car flipped over at a curve. Upon closer inspection, it was indeed her car. There didn't seem to be any fire hazards, and she was unconscious inside the car. I pondered for a moment and decided to ignore her completely. I pretended not noticing her. Why would I have any obligation to help the woman who just dumped me on a mountain? She had literally told me to go away because I was in the way. There's no need to help her at all. I continued walking, leaving her car behind. Finally, hearing the sound of passing cars, I realized I was near a major road, and luckily, I was able to hail a cab and return home. I finally arrived home. Next morning, I woke up with my phone ringing. It was from hospital, saying that my Mill had been carried to the hospital. Reluctantly, I headed to the hospital where my mother-in-law was waiting. When I got to the hospital and made my way to her room, she immediately started yelling at me. "Where have you been? If you are coming back from that mountain road, you must have seen me. How could you go home without saying anything? I can't believe you could go home knowing your mother is in this state. What's unbelievable is your behavior, not mine." I silently swear in my head, "Look, I didn't see your car, Mill. I must have taken a different road. I'm sorry I didn't notice. I was so tired when I got home. I just assumed you were back and went to sleep. How's your injury?" I decided to lie to keep things smooth. "Both my legs are broken. What are you going to do about it? You're taking care of me. I can't. I'm also recovering from a broken bone." I reply logically, "No excuses. It's a daughter-in-law's job to do whatever needs to be done. You treated me like a nuisance just yesterday. You want that kind of person taking care of you. Enough with the excuses. Just take care of me. I can't do what I can't do." At that moment, my husband and father-in-law, who had been informed, arrived from their trip. I had already filled my husband in on yesterday's events. My Mill, who adores her son, immediately clings to him. "Bob, your wife Lisa says she won't take care of me. What a heartless woman, right? Divorce her? There's got to be someone better for you." But my husband was already furious. "Mom, I heard from Lisa. You left her stranded in the mountains yesterday. What was going through your head? I can't believe you could be so reckless. I'm guessing this is some kind of revenge for making you do house chores. If you hate Lisa that much, we're leaving. Don't interfere with our lives anymore." Her beloved son's decision to cut ties. My Mill turned pale hearing, "Bob, please don't say that. I can't live without you. Don't worry, you've got Dad." Enjoy your life without meddling in ours. Oh, and Dad will handle your care. We won't be coming around anymore. My husband takes my hand, and we'll leave our hospital room. Later on, we moved to a new house while my mill was still hospitalized. We kept our new address a secret, and so my in-laws are left to fend for themselves. My mill had to rely on professional caregivers. She treated them terribly. First one quitted, and after third caregivers quitted, the professional caregivers firm terminated the contract and went through 3 before getting blacklisted. I was sidelined for a few months, waiting for my fractured legs to heal, though I should have been patient. Getting blacklisted meant I couldn't get proper service, basically shooting myself in the foot. My father-in-law, John, is feeling pretty uncomfortable and is seriously considering divorcing my mill. Frankly, I wish he'd just go ahead and leave her already. Am I the only one who thinks this way? When I talked to my husband about it, all he said was, "Isn't there something meaningful for staying together for so long?" However, I genuinely wish John would find happiness. As for us, after we moved, it felt like we were newlyweds again as we began our life together. My legs healed nicely, and I can walk now without crutches. Since it's just the 2 of us now, we decided to share household chores. Honestly, I was surprised that Bob even agreed to help out. The division of labor is going smoothly, and after a few months, I found out that I'm pregnant. It's to the point where I wonder if the stress from my mill had been preventing me from getting pregnant all this time. From here on, we want to pool our efforts to create a peaceful life for the 3 of us, including our soon-to-be-born child.